We decided to go for a hardware-based RAID, just for the fact that it doesn't require processor, intensive processor work. Most of the work is on the controller itself. The cost efficiency and the BIOS can boot from the controller, and it also has hot swapping capabilities. That's the main reason why we have that. If RAID 6 was implemented, it requires a larger complex of arrays. Possibly in our main server, we'd have 12 to 24 drives, but that's just, dreaming it up. Right now, you can start at about, instead of 3 in a RAID 5 configuration, we go 4, so it'd be dual parity. We're keeping the possibility only for multi-drive failures. So if one drive goes out while we're doing an update, we always have another backup. For our backup, our offsite backup, we decided to go use a SAN. The reason that the SAN interconnects different types of network storage devices associated with data servers on behalf of a larger network of users. Servers on the behalf of for storage area network, we'll use a RAID 5 or a possibility of RAID 6, like I just mentioned, but we'll also implement it on our offsite storage for extra security. For backup redundancy, full backups will be put on large tape drives. The rest of it will be incremental. Either be privately shipped to a supervised company or by a trusted courier. And that will also probably happen on a Saturday about 1 o'clock. Well, Friday at 1 o'clock in the morning. That way we won't have the network down and we won't have viable information being lost or hold a server up. The take backups will be performed every Friday at 1 a.m. like I mentioned, and will be full backups. We also have an incremental backup on the local server with a shadow copy twice a day. And that will probably occur at about 7 a.m. or to 12 a.m. twice a day. That is my hardware and backups. And I pass it to, looks like Jeremy.
Good morning, my name is Jeremy. First thing I'll be going over is RIS. RIS is called Remote Installation Service. It is used to deploy images across the network or even run setup files across the network. There's two types you can use: RIS, which is Windows-based, or else you can use Norton Ghost, which is a third-party software, which is also another good tool for deploying images straight. A couple things about RIS. You have to make sure that you are on a domain and Active Directory is up and running to use RIS. You have to make sure the DHCP server on the network is authorized. And you have to make sure that, an extra note is you can use either SP1 on Server 2003, or you can use SP2. SP2 has more updated files for deploying RIS. Another thing is you have to have a secondary partition or an extra hard drive in order to install RIS on. It is highly recommended, therefore you don't have as much workload on one hard drive for the local server, and then if you're deploying an image, it's better to have another partition, or better yet, another hard drive. To run it, all you have to do is go to Add Remove Windows Components and go to, in SP1, you would go to Remote Installation Service. SP2, you'd go to Windows Deployment Service. After that, you would restart and get back into Windows Server 2003. This is what the installation process looks like for the beginning of RIS. This would be where you'd add the installation file. You can either do Server 03, Windows 2000, Windows XP. That is pretty much how you install which OS you would. You put in a disk in the drive, let's say Windows XP disk, and then copy that to that other partition or hard disk to where it'd know what to install. This is the end of it, where it'd be your DHCP is authorized, remote installation service, and your setup files are created. After that, you can edit the SIF file, which would be an unintended answer file. So you wouldn't have to go type anything in during the setup. It would automatically go through everything. You can edit that by getting the setup manager from the deploy.cab off the Windows XP or 2003 disk. With that, you can edit the SIF file from the location, which is in the templates directory inside of the remote installation on the hard disk that you installed it to. With editing that, then you can pretty much customize it however you want and put in keys or usernames, computer names, anything else that you wanted on that end. After that, you would need to boot from the client Pixie pre-installation environment. You'd have to make sure that that is enabled at boot. This would be your first thing. It would pull an IP address, and then you'd hit F12 to actually boot from the pre-installation environment. This is where you would enter your credentials to actually log into the domain. You'd have to be into the domain in order to see the Active Directory for this to work. This is a screenshot of us entering that in just so I'd make sure it'd go through. At this screen, this is the last screen of the Pixie, which it's warning you that it's about to wipe out everything on the hard drive and that it starts with the installation setup of that. As soon as you get all with the intended answer file in there, the rest of the setup process would go through, partition your hard drives. It wouldn't ask you a thing, therefore you could start that on a number and amount of machines and deploy it through that way. Next thing on our list is WSUS, or Windows Server Update Service. I used the newest build from Microsoft, version 3.0. It had quite a bit more flexibility in it than the older versions. On your left-hand screen, that is the WSUS inside. You can download from Microsoft, install it. You have to have Service Pack 2 and .NET Framework installed. Other than that, while we use WSUS, it would enable us to deploy the updates or test them before we deploy them. Therefore, we can detect any problems since Microsoft can put out some defaulty updates every once in a while. Another thing, it can lower the workload of your network when it comes to deploying the updates, because you can set up multiple WSUS service. It's not a very large service, so you can put it on any other server that you wanted to and have that actually expand out between your network. Like you can have one server distribute updates against one group of network or computers. Therefore, you don't have all of them pulling from one location at one time. And that would be it for WSUS.
I'll be explaining group policy with you guys. Basically what we did with the group policy, we had set up basically control and moderation over our users. This is mostly for testing purposes. What we did was we set up a 4 password remember process, 30 days age on it. After the 30 days they have to reset, but they cannot reset it before 5 days. This will also be changed later in our actual launch, which Jake will cover later. We wanted to have 3 login attempts at a 30-minute lockout period. But we did want to make sure that we did have a success and failure audit to make sure who was able to log in and who was not and how many times they tried to do it. In our local policy, basically what we wanted to do is whenever they logged in, we did not want a username to be shown or what domain that they were currently connected to. Also, whenever they had locked the computer, we did not want to show that information. We wanted a warning message to pop up letting them know that it was illegal to log on unauthorized, which would do as soon as you hit Control-Alt-Delete to try to log on. And then to get the most productivity out of our users, we locked up pretty much the entire desktop so they couldn't change the background, appearance, any of the screensavers, stuff like that. And we also locked out the time because we have a problem with a lot of people always watching their clock, wanting to know when to clock out and leave. The one thing that we did do in here was we did set our AFP background constantly. We don't need somebody with their children or dog or anything as the background itself. A lot of this stuff we did change for our final launch. We'll be actually tightening down quite a bit compared to what we have on here. And I'll pass it on to Jake for our actual password security.